Bonjour.
Bonjour. Welcome to Miraval.
Thank you very
How
much.
are
Great
ya?
to meet you.
Good to meet you. Carmen, how are you?
It's great to be back, even though I don't recognize it.
Yeah, it's quite different, isn't it? That's the tower of the studio and the rest of the studio building too. It's kind of a shock when you enter here, not just the studio, but also the domain and the greenery all around and the vineyards and the olive trees. Miraval is kind of a holy grail when it comes to recording studios.
Okay, this I remember.
The live room, you remember?
I remember this, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was always very important for me as an engineer to try to respect as much as I could the legacy of the space, understand the roots of it, whether it's the actual roots of the trees, but also the musical roots, and try to propose a new vision of, hey, what could be a studio for the modern ages? I designed with Brad the shape of the spaceship here, where we could have the best of both. We have an integrated Avid S6 within the desk, and at the same time we have, you know, fantastic AMS, we've got Neve preamps, we've got 1176, etc. It's just so that we can work with the analog realm while being digital.
I did all analog for years, so they're completely different headspaces, completely different. The things that are really, really fun in analog don't really exist so much in digital. The hands-on, just pulling lots of knobs without ever having to think about what's there. But then there's lots of stuff in digital that I absolutely love.
Whether you're mixing on a laptop or an Avid, controller, I still need, faders. I need something to touch. So I like the fact that you have this. You have these monitors on the side, which often they're in the middle and you can't see. So it feels like an analog desk.
When you're in a session, you have so many producers working on beats, on different laptops, on different softwares. But in the end, Pro Tools is kind of the mothership.
Yeah.
And everything is regrouped there so that you can make sure you get the right sound and you get the right way of editing. It's a 6-meter desk, so obviously we were able to fit in lots of beautiful analog equipment all around, and they're routed right now directly to go into the Pro Tools as a direct insert, for example. I've always been a fan of the AX32, and it's amazing that Avid did a partnership with them for the Matrixes or the MTRX, because for me it's a no-brainer.
It's the best sounding thing I've ever used.
Me too, by far.
It's amazing that anyone would bother building a place like this at this point.
It took a year from design to finish, but we really had to renovate, and that was the hardest thing.
You've done such a great job of not only making it the sign of the times of the current fashion, but taken the legacy of the old stuff and incorporated it into the modern kind of workflow.
The sense of inspiration you have is out of this world. You just need to walk outside to be inspired.
Really, you did a fantastic job.
How do you collaborate with an artist? Is your way of working completely different depending on the style of music that you are going to mix or produce? Do you change your ways of working?
For me, it's exactly the same for everything. And that's why, everything we're talking about is for the recording and production process. If I try and mix somewhere else, I spend all my time trying to figure out the room. But when I'm tracking somewhere else, it's great to have to figure out the room, to have to really think about where you're going to put the drums, and can I do this with 2 microphones? Oh no, I got to put up a couple of extras. So that experimentation while recording or producing, I think, is amazing. But I'm actually very much the opposite when I'm mixing.
I'm a little bit of the opposite, where I could make a record in the backseat of my car if I have to. I don't really care, because I want to be involved. And I want to be challenged, because I often say you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, you'll surprise yourself how well you do. In the end, if you can be a little bit more comfortable in mixing, you'll feel better about the end product.
Yeah, like you were talking about putting yourself in an uncomfortable position for mixing. For me, every mix is an uncomfortable position. I started thinking this is going to go horribly wrong and no one's going to like it and it's going to be terrible. So that's my uncomfortable situation at home.
Every time I look and I open up a session, I do something different. I used I use different plugins. I don't always use the same compressor, the same EQ.
You never use templates or anything?
Never.
Like you
No,
go
and
from
I know
scratch.
so many people do that, which I'm jealous.
For me, the template is like, well, that's my console, but still everything is bespoke on the tracks themselves. I just have some stuff set up that I use a lot.
Yeah, and I guess
You know.
maybe I should rephrase it, because templates maybe are different of like how you have things set up, or sends or buses or reverbs or something. But there's, we're all guilty of like, you have your favorite compressor or delay, etc. But I think for any of us, it's an open canvas, and you should be able to approach it a little bit different depending on the music, right?
You usually use presets within the plugins when they come around, and just go through the presets, see what's in.
It depends on the plugin. No preset's going to be perfect. But then also sometimes there's something to be said for like, well, I'm going to make this preset work, and you build other stuff around it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you are sort of forcing yourself down a road instead of just like let the road build itself in front of you while you go, which is kind of cool.
You could really give a lot of life into an old plugin with just the presets.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of us are intimidated by presets, like, oh, I would never use the snare drum preset on the EQ. Like,
Hell
how dare
you
me?
will, just to see what.
No, I'm saying some might.
I know.
It's the reflex, but it could be like the flavor of the month producer or engineer or musician or whoever, and they give you new presets. Like, holy shit, I had no idea this could do that.
And the things that are always great in art are things that are surprising, that seem to come out of nowhere. So it's not like, oh, we know how to make something sound like it went through an 1176. Do you know how to get a one mic drum sound through an 1176 with all 4 buttons in, moving the mic back 6 feet? Like, I remember recording with you at Sound Factory.
Yeah.
And we had one mic 12 feet away with a compressor on it, and it was like the best drum sound ever.
Would you say people are coming here to do the Dolby Atmos mixing, or they want to mix just in Pro Tools or record, or they want to sort of do like a hybrid mixing of like sub-mixing on the SSL, bouncing it into Pro Tools?
Sometimes we do have Atmos sessions, so it's great to be able to rely on the Dolby renderer and also the way it communicates with Pro Tools. I think that's super smooth now. With the new tools they put in place, it's like seamless. So that's pretty cool.
Like if you're doing a rock track, you're going to layer guitars so that it's awesome in stereo.
Yeah.
And when you split those apart, it doesn't necessarily work. You might not have the guitar arrangement you need to work that way. But if you just work in quad, you're thinking front rear. And that's enough to have all the bits you need to then spread it out even more. And I've definitely seen when artists hear an Atmos mix of stuff they've already done, then they start thinking about, oh, next time we're going to do this. And it's starting to creep in. So I feel like the whole next generation of records is when we're really going to see Atmos take off, because it will be intentional. It won't be reworking of existing stuff.
Both of your careers really helped me as an engineer and also as a human being. So wanted to show you all my appreciation, and that you're also part of the design here, because you were at the forefront of my thoughts and inspiration. So it is a real moment for me to have you here. So thank you again.